Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's edition of Isolation Cocktails and Singles Travel International and Single Life Today. We've kind of merged the two together. And today we're going to be learning how to make cocktails for Thanksgiving. So Matt from Isolation Cocktails, I'm going to send it over to you.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. It's nice to see your faces. And for those who are new, whether it be in class or on the YouTube channel or what have you, it's nice to have you. My name is Matt Licca. I'm a mixologist and bartender who lives in Toronto, Canada. Over the pandemic, I decided to not only drink lots of alcohol, like many people did, but also try and start a business off of it, get to know other people, and it's led me to lots of fun places like this. So today, though, we are getting together to create some fantastic Thanksgiving, I'm going to say Thanksgiving themed. I went pretty liberal with the theme. I tried to think more outside of the box than just like the turkey. And I was trying to think of people coming together. And like my idea here is that if you were getting together with family after maybe not seeing them for a hot second, because I mean, we didn't do Thanksgiving. A lot of people didn't do Thanksgiving properly last year. So coming back together is going to be a lot of, I think, a lot of celebration. And I'm hoping that you can take one of these drinks or maybe all three of them tonight and bring them to your family. Of course, the way this kind of works out, if you are here with us in the Zoom call, I can see you over here on my right-hand side. I've got a computer so I can see your faces. I can see what you're up to. But we use the chat a lot. I put in the chat kind of information about the cocktails, things like, you know, how many ounces, what we're pouring, things like that. But please feel free. We're a small enough group here that, you know, feel free to use your voice if you have any questions. Usually, I've got my dynamic duo partner, Rosie Callahan, on the other side of the screen, but she was a hotshot superstar this week and booked a gig and is singing tonight. So, and you know, I'll make my way there like a good partner at some point. That being said, please feel free to turn on your microphone or throw it down in the chat, and I'll make sure to answer some questions of yours. But folks, let's jump right into this. We're going to be making three beautiful cocktails. I'm going to throw our first one down in the chat. And while I do that, feel free to, in the chat, especially if you're new, tell me what your favorite cocktail is of all time or what you're looking forward to most this Thanksgiving. Go ahead and throw it in the chat, just so that I can see it and so that you know where the chat is. That's also my like sneaky way of being like, this is where the chat is, and you will know. I mean, it's been a year and a half we've been doing Zoom. I assume you know, but you never know. I'm going to go ahead and grab our first cocktail, and I'll throw that down in the chat for you. Right there. Perfect. All right, so look at the ingredients. What do we got so far? Right now, we're rocking with the bourbon, a little bit of orange juice, lemon, maple syrup, ginger, definitely things that are kind of fall tastes. Love a good old fashioned. I'm looking forward to spending Thanksgiving in New York with singles travel members. I'm really jealous. You have two trips coming up. You have the New York one, which Rosie and I obviously super jealous, not only for like the Broadway shows and the museums, but all the fantastic bars you could hop in New York City. Like that's where the cocktail renaissance happened. Like, let me tell you, there are plethora of places to visit. But also you have a train tour through Canada.
Yep, those are both mine.
Yeah, I mean, look, Rosie and I have definitely talked about going across Canada in the train. So I will have lots of questions for you when you get back.
You got it.
And vodka drinks are fantastic. They're super easy. Fun fact about vodka. Vodka is the #1 sold spirit on the planet. It is not the most #1 consumed, but it is the best-selling alcohol on the planet, which is really fun. So that makes sense that you enjoy vodka, because you most likely, if you have any alcohol at home, you most likely have a bottle of vodka. All right, so let's get into this first cocktail, folks. What is this cocktail? This cocktail is known as the Devil's Share. Now, this Devil's Share cocktail is actually the antithesis of another cocktail known as Angel's Share. Now, the Angel's Share cocktail is a cognac and vanilla-based cocktail, but the idea of the share, the Devil's Share and the Angel's Share, when you are distilling bourbon or whiskey or really kind of any alcohol, usually in some kind of like barrel, like an oak barrel, the fumes that leave the barrel during the distilling process, they say that that part of the alcohol is the Angel's Share. So the idea here is we took the angel share cocktail and kind of flipped it on its head and are using things that kind of parallel to the angels in the devil's version. And the reason why I was like, oh, this is kind of Thanksgiving, it's really the taste, not so much the name. You could rename this for your family and kind of name it, I don't know, like the turkey's share, or like pretty much anything you really like to. But something we are starting off with is some fantastic fresh peeled ginger. The reason why I opted for actual ginger instead of like ground ginger or like a ginger syrup is that I have an assumption that this kind of stuff gets bought around this time of year. So you may happen to have it in your pantry and you're like, I don't need all of this ginger, but I need it for something in a recipe. Well, here's another use for it. So what I like to do is I like to peel it, which I pre-peeled it. And I'm gonna cut myself just off the top here, about 3 to 4 slices worth, which are roughly about a inch in size. And I'm gonna end up muddling this later. Now, if you're not a huge ginger fan, don't worry. This isn't really taken over by the ginger flavor because there's a lot of other strong tastes in this cocktail. But that's really the prep we need off the top, is just a couple of slices of pre-peeled fresh ginger. But after that, what would I serve this in? I'd serve this in a nice hefty rocks glass. There's something about a rocks glass that makes me go, if the devil was going to have a drink, it would be in a nice rocks glass. That or like a really like kind of heavy goblet. I just don't have that. So I went with my second choice, the rocks glass. Rule of thumb, of course, with bartenders, we always want to chill down our glassware. No one likes a hot beer in a hot mug, so no one likes a cold cocktail in a room temperature glass. So feel free to throw it in the fridge, get a little ice in it, a little water, something of that nature. I am going to throw a little water in it from my sink here, pop that off, and we'll pop that over to the side, and we will start off with our cocktail shakers. So cocktail shakers out, nothing in there quite yet, but we are going to start off with our muddling process with that pre-cut ginger that we did just a little earlier. So I've got about 3 or 4 slices. I'm going to throw that at the bottom of my shaker. And this depending on what bartender you talk to, will come up with a different answer. I dislike muddling dry, which means just muddling ingredients into an empty tin. I like that flavor to go somewhere. And usually the best kind of sponge for flavor is sugar. So what we're going to do is grab our maple syrup. Now this is, of course, the best sugar on the planet, from one Canadian to the rest of my American friends. You really beat this. I don't know. I don't know if you have, I don't know if, does the US have like a sugar that is there? Like Mexico's got agave syrup. Canadians have maple syrup. Do America?
Not unless it's the chemical kind, probably.
What do you have? Mark, what do you have? You
It's
showed
fake sugar.
something. Mark, what do you got? Mark's got, what is it? We can't see it.
Oh, that's maple syrup. Some sort of maple syrup, yeah.
Mark, you're on.
You're muted.
Mark, you're muted. You're muted. I'll tell you. Mark, you're muted.
No, what I was saying, if there's an American sweetener, it's fructose.
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
Stevia, we got stevia here.
All right, so you're gonna grab your, I would say the Canadian sugar, that maple syrup. You know, you could really do this with any sugar here, but I'm really trying to think more, of course, autumn flavors and Thanksgiving. And I'm just gonna measure out 1/4 of an ounce and pour that right over my fantastic ginger. And what you're gonna wanna do is with that ginger, you're gonna wanna grab a muddler. And I think I left my muddler over here, which I did. Hello, hello. You can muddle with anything. It can be the back of a spoon, the back of a fork. Now I'm gonna tell you right now, ginger, it's not really like muddle friendly. You're gonna have to put some real work into this. You wanna push down, get that elbow nice and high, and really kind of grind this out. Now, we're not looking for like a fine paste by any means, but we are looking for it to just kind of break down a little bit and kind of get into that maple syrup. So eventually, if you were to just pour this out, you have a ginger spiced maple syrup, which already, put that on a salad. I'm ready to go. I don't need that in a cocktail. I can literally have this on anything. And to kind of prove that point, of course, once you are done muddling that out and feel like it's crushed enough, give your muddler a taste. Oh, I'm dead. That's so good. Ooh, that's hot. That had a little kickback. That was good. Oh, yeah. And then you can go ahead and fill that cocktail shaker up with some ice. And just so you know, this cocktail was created in 2006 by Pete Kendall of the Met Bar in London, England. He thought he would name this after himself. He's kind of he doesn't call himself a devil worshiper, but he went to Taiwan and he was a big kind of proponent of the bar culture out there. And the devil has a lot of different stories, obviously, throughout the world. And he learned a lot about the devil and different versions of the devil. Taiwan came back and created this cocktail, I guess as like a tribute to his time in Taiwan. But just, you know, just so you think that I'm not stealing his ideas or anything, I want to make sure that the right person is credited. All right, once we got that muddled down, go ahead and throw some ice into your cocktail shaker. I'm gonna go ahead and grab a little bit of ice. Not too much, we don't have to go crazy here. 3 or 4 cubes, if I can get it out of my dollar store containers here, there we go. All right, let's get this one rocking. Let's get some American goodness in there. I'm gonna go ahead and grab some Kentucky bourbon. Now, of course, not all whiskey is bourbon, but not all whiskey is bourbon, but all bourbon is whiskey. That is correct. That's, you know, sometimes I play myself. All right. Let's go ahead and do 2 ounces of our fantastic bourbon. Now, if you got whiskey or rye at home, go ahead. That's totally fine. You don't need to have bourbon. It's got a really nice, strong, sweet flavor. Most bourbons, they're nice and punchy. It's kind of the American way and wasting cocktails to be really forward with their flavors. So lots of caramel, lots of vanilla flavors coming through in most bourbons, or at least Kentucky bourbons, I should say.
Do you have a brand you recommend?
My favorite off the top of my head is Woodford Reserve. 8 times out of 10. I think for the price point and the quality of the product, it's superb. You can go into better quality, into higher prices, but if you're looking to spend a little bit extra money off of what you normally would, Woodford Reserve is my go-to every time. Great question. Let's go ahead and grab some lemon juice. Now you'll notice I'm using myself bottled lemon juice. And look, fresh is always better. Don't get me wrong. I have just been, I work at a bar 6 days a week. My hands are torn up from literally the acid of lemon and lime juice. So when I'm at home, I like to use the bottled stuff, but I'll tell you now, nothing is better than fresh lemon juice or lime juice. But I'm gonna do 3/4 of an ounce here of some lemon juice. And folks, with that ginger, there's only one more ingredient left. The cocktails don't have to be overly complicated. We've got a nice, simple cocktail rocking. The last ingredient is gonna be just a touch of OJ. Now, if you got yourself some pulp in your OJ, I would throw that out and maybe you should leave. We don't like pulp. No, I'm not a pulp drinker. That's just not who I am. But there are some monsters out there that really enjoy pulp in their orange juice. But if you do have pulp in your orange juice, you'll just have to double strain this cocktail to make sure that pulp gets caught somewhere before it ends up in your glass. We're gonna do 3/4 of an ounce. So the same amount of lemon juice you just did. We're gonna be doing orange juice as well. And then you can go ahead and close up that cocktail shaker nice and tight. And we can shake that for about 15 to 20 seconds, nice and vigorous to really chill this down and get all of those flavors married and getting to know each other.
Matt, tell them about the stop sign.
Whoa, go ahead.
Tell them how you shake with the stop sign or
With the stuff. If you're ever like, hey, I don't know how to shake, shaking's a little awkward. Trust me, everyone, I'll tell you right now, has a different style shaking, but the beginner's version that I was taught, or recently, was someone had kind of taught it recently, and I overheard it, and I thought it was really clever, is the red light, green light process. So you start by hitting the red light, bring it back, hit the green light, and you just repeat that over and over.
Oh,
Brilliant.
Just like that. And what you want to do is you want to shake, and like, let me tell you, I've seen bartenders shake like this, shake like, up and down here. As long as we get a nice back and forth motion, you're good to go. And once that shaker is nice and cold, and that to the touch, it's nice and cold as well, we'll get rid of that water that was sitting in our cocktail glass that was chilling our glass. And because it's a rocks glass, I like to get nice, large king cube ice cubes. I'm gonna go into the fridge, and yes, I still have them. I'm gonna go ahead and grab myself a nice king cube. I mean, if it's the devil, I would assume that he would be doing king cubes anyway. And I'm gonna go ahead and grab my strainer, and I'm gonna strain this out. Now, because we muddled ginger, you could double strain this to make sure you don't get any little ginger shards in your drink. But I'm gonna tell you right now, I didn't muddle mine, like I said, to a paste. So my Boston strainer will most likely catch everything, and it did. At the end of the day, all the ginger's still in here, which is great. All righty. And then in terms of a garnish, I would do some kind of zest. We did a lot of different juices in here in terms of a lemon and an orange. So a zest from one of those two, I think would be best. So I'm gonna grab myself a lemon. And I'm just gonna give myself a quick peel of lemon or orange. I really think if I had an orange, I'd probably do an orange here, but I got a lemon. And there's lemon involved in this cocktail. That's always a good place to start when you're like, oh, how do I garnish this drink? You always want your garnishes to inform the cocktail. They can amplify the cocktail. Some garnishes are meant to amplify, like an orange twist in an old fashioned gives you that little bit of citrus note that you're looking for. But I will say, it sometimes can just be for show, but I always think that it should complement the drink with what's in it. And there you have it, a little bit of lemon rind on the side of that. Just like that, folks. And alrighty, if you happen to have one in front of you, there it is, the Devil's Share. Cheers, folks.
That looks delicious.
Let's find out. Oh, ooh, it's got levels. I love a cocktail that's got levels. It's sweet on the tip of the tongue with that orange juice and bourbon coming forward. But then in the back end, you get that nice ginger spice hitting the back of the throat, which really kind of has a bit of an effect kind of down into the chest. And like, look, like when I think devil, I think fiery, which kind of leads to spicy. And this is the right kind of spice for the fall, kind of moving into winter category of the year. Mark, you have one in front of you? I can see you sipping it. What do we think? Feel free to unmute, my friend, because I see that you're still muted, which is good, because I appreciate it when you're shaking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I like it, and I agree. It's got the sweetness, and then you feel the ginger, like in me, in sort of the top of my throat.
Yeah. No, this is definitely one of those cocktails that I feel like I wouldn't call this a party cocktail. I'd call this a nice slow sipping cocktail. Although there's some juice in here, which kind of leads me to believe it's a party cocktail. A lot of the time, party cocktails involve juices. That's just like where my brain goes. But that being said, would
Does
encourage.
it taste too sweet with all the orange juice?
Would it
No.
without juice?
Yeah, so for me, the sort of the lemon juice, which is the sour, counters the orange juice. So gives it a nice balance.
No, this is definitely, I wouldn't call it a sweet cocktail. I would call it a balanced cocktail. Also, if you'll notice in the ingredients list, sometimes you can kind of see where things may balance or be slightly tart or slightly sweet. And in this recipe, there is an equal amount orange juice to lemon juice. So the theory behind it is that it should be balanced. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way. But yes, I would say this is definitely a balanced cocktail. And if you wanted to switch out the juice for something else, you totally could. I don't think it ruins it. Just trying to think what goes well with ginger. So oranges, cranberry, I think would be pretty good here. Ginger, especially around Thanksgiving, cranberry sauce, am I right? So, but of course, I teach you the classic version of the cocktail, and I leave the experimentation and the home remedies to you. But folks, that is our first cocktail of the hour. If you're drinking along with us, I mean, take another sip of the glass of wine or the beer or the cocktail that you have in front of you. But if you are shaking with us, make sure to rinse out your cocktail shakers into the sink before you jump into the next cocktail, because wow, you definitely don't want any ginger in the next one. So, it's one of those things that you want to just make sure that you're always rinsing things. I will say this, as a bartender, it is probably the number one thing I do after every cocktail is I assess my situation, what needs a rinse down, so that I'm not, I think it's just a good food safety, and like things like, hey, someone might have an allergy, I should probably do that. So, don't kill anybody is what I'm trying to say. All right. I think we can condone not killing people. All right. I'm going to head off to our next cocktail, folks. And we're taking a step up in terms of, I guess, kind of a price point. I don't often do a lot of cocktails that involve cognac. But I will say, with people coming together for the first time in a long time for a meaningful event like Thanksgiving, who knows what might be flowing? And definitely one thing that I know will be flowing is that wine. So I picked up myself a little baby bottle of wine for this cocktail, but this is great for when you have that extra bit of wine in the bottle, in the box like me, and need something to do with it. And you're like, oh, I don't want to do a sangria, that's a summer thing. Well, here's a little bit of a winter thing for you. And this cocktail is a riff off of another cocktail known as the Velvet Revolver, which I'll get into its history in a second. But I have dubbed this cocktail the red sauce, because there's always a mystery red sauce on a Thanksgiving table. Sometimes it's cranberry, sometimes it's something else. I don't know. I came from a household with a lot of eclectic flavor profiles, and I never knew what the red sauce was. I was like, every year it's something different. It's kind of mom's surprise on that Thanksgiving table. So that's where the inspiration was for me. But let me tell you about the original version of this cocktail, which is called the Velvet Revolver. It was created by a gentleman named Rob Collins when he was the head bartender at the London Cocktail Club. And he developed this cocktail for Cocktails in the City, which is a magazine, it's an imbibe style magazine where it's literally just about cocktails and drinks you can get in London in 2017. Rob says that the cocktail is a short and strong and fruity and really pulls out those wonderful grape flavors that we get out of cognac, because cognac is made similar to wine. That's why it can only be cognac if it comes from the region of cognac, similar to specific wines, and to things like champagne that come from Champagne. So that's why our cognac is a little on the pricey side, because it's got to come from somewhere specific, and that's okay. But folks, for this one, I'm reverting back to my rocks glass. Something about this cocktail being originally called the Velvet Revolver makes me go, yeah, this is the glass for me. But put in whatever you want. I don't care. It's going to taste the same. So I'm going to go ahead and throw a little bit of ice in my glass just to chill it down, give it a little bit of time to relax, get cold. I'm going to set that off to the side because there is no muddling in this cocktail. So we are going to start off with our shaker. And we're going to go ahead and throw some ice right into it. And I've run out of ice here, so I'm going to jump back into the fridge here. Ooh, I got some spears I can break out. It's always fun to see what kind of ice I've left myself over the week. I've got my mold here that I'm just going to break the ice up and throw it in there and use the discard. There we go. All right. So let's get into this one, folks. This one's really fun. It's got some really fun, I've already used the word eclectic, but I do have some kind of interesting ingredients in this cocktail. But we are going to start off with our cognac. Now, look, I'm going to tell you folks right now, this is a habit I have because I love getting to the booze. But the rule of thumb as a bartender is that you're supposed to actually pour your booze last. Why is that? Nothing to do with the taste. It has to do with when you screw up. If you've put this in first, you're always throwing away your screwed up alcohol. Whereas if you do it last and you screw up like the lemon juice or the orange juice, well, you haven't gotten to the pricey stuff, so it's okay to start over. But when I'm at home, I'm like, let's get the booze in there. So that's where I go right away. So I'm going to continue doing the thing I was not taught to do and do 1 3/4 of cognac going right into my shaker. Now, I'm here to teach people things. It's more of a, do as I say, not as I do, but like you can do what I do. It's okay. We've got 1 3/4 worth of cognac going in. The next up is our other alcohol, our secondary alcohol here. It's going to be our Pinot Noir. Now, look, it doesn't have to be a Pinot Noir. It can be, I would just say, stay away from the fruitiness. You want to go for a drier wine. The reason being is this wine particularly is going to help balance this cocktail. You'll notice as we go, we get some more sugary components in the cocktail. So having something a little drier is going to help this out. And we can go ahead and do 3/4 of an ounce of that wine, Pinot Noir preferred. But whatever you have at home, it's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. But what's cool is that when you do different wines, this cocktail will take on different taste profiles. So if you do this multiple times with different wines, you will get a different result, which is kind of cool. Alrighty, we've got 3/4 of an ounce. Go ahead and throw in a little bit of that tartness. Go ahead and grab some lemon juice. We're going to brighten this up. We're going to do ourselves half an ounce of lemon juice here, going right in there. Now, for this recipe, I do have a 2-to-1 simple syrup. Now, if you don't have a 2-to-1 and just a regular 1-to-1, which is a 1/2 warm water or hot water and 1/2 white sugar, just go ahead and double what I've put down in the recipe. So if you have a 2-to-1, do 1/4 ounce. And if you have a 1-to-1 simple syrup, do 1/2 ounce. So I'm going to go ahead and do just a touch of simple syrup. Most simple syrup sold, I will say right now, if you bought it and have not made it, is a 1-to-1 ratio. But if you're making it at home, you can play with those ratios a little bit, which is nice. And here comes the little bit of eclectic, a little bit of different, something that you might have at home, little strawberry jam. So I've got some Schmuckers. I don't know, it's the one jam I know. I really don't know any other jam names. I'm sure there are other more fun jams out there, but Schmucker's my boy. My girl, my Schmuckers. This is not an ad for Schmuckers. I will move on. So I am using a bar spoon. Feel free to use any other spoon you like, but when I say 1 spoon in most cocktail recipes, you see the word spoon, they are always referring to a bar spoon. Now, I like to do a heaping heavy portion of that strawberry, and this like by itself looks like cranberry sauce. You couldn't tell me that's not cranberry sauce without really like tasting it or like smelling it. So that's kind of the idea there. But I do 1 heaping kind of bar spoon worth of strawberry jam. And the last thing we're going to throw in there, folks, is just a touch of Angostura bitters. And I'm going to do 2 dashes, 3 for good measure. And if you don't know what bitters are, they add complexity to a cocktail. Simply, they help enhance certain flavors. And Angostura, their main kind of flavor notes, cloves, cinnamons, allspice. And that's why I think in this cocktail, Thanksgiving, those flavors, going to be lovely. Alrighty, folks, and that is all you need there. You can go ahead and close that up with your ice. And just as a refresher, we got 1 3/4 ounce cognac. We've got 3/4 ounce Pinot Noir or wine. We've got 1/2 ounce of lemon juice, just a touch of simple syrup, a heaping bar spoon of strawberry jam, and a couple dashes of Angostura bitters over some ice. Go ahead and shake that up. Now, when you got something like a jam in here, you really want to give it a nice, mean shake. You want to get that jam to break up, which is going to be, your ice is really doing a lot of that work. But you want to make sure that that's really getting together nice and good. All righty. I'm going to pop that up. Ooh, that's looking nice and red, just the way I want it. I'm going to get rid of the ice sitting in my cocktail glass. And I'm going to refresh it with some new ice. I'm going to use a nice round mold here. Looks kind of lonely in the glass, actually. So I'm going to use 2. I'm going to use 2 nice spheres in my cocktail glass. And for this one, I would suggest double straining because jam will seep through your cocktail. So I will grab, it's okay. I'm going to grab my fine mesh strainer here. If you've never seen one before, it is just a small colander or tea strainer, if you will, but it's good to catch any little extra bits that my first strainer misses. And I'm going to go ahead and pour that out right in. Ooh, that's coming out just a beautiful shade of red. And I can see that I got a little cocktail left in my strainer, so I'm just going to move it around. Essentially, I'm moving the jam out of the way so the liquid can seep through. There we go. Ooh, this is looking good. It's going to be light. I don't know if it's going to be refreshing. It's definitely going to be light in terms of that cognac. Cognac's not like a heavy alcohol or liqueur. And then finally, for a garnish, I like to have something a little kind of smell going. So I'm going to get those Christmas vibes rocking a little early. And I'm going to grab some mint. And I'm just going to get myself a nice little sprig of mint. Rule of thumb with mint, go wild, overuse it. Who likes to see a little baby shard of mint? I like to see me a nice bouquet of mint. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a little love tap, kind of wake it up. Going to pop that right in, just like that. Make that nice and Instagrammable. You know how it is. Got to make these things photo worthy, right? And if you really want to go the extra mile, I would even throw a strawberry on here if you really wanted to go. But you know, strawberries a season. We're out of season for strawberries. So you know, if you got the money, throw a strawberry on that. But folks, there it is. This is the red sauce cocktail, or formerly known as the Velvet Revolver.
That looks great.
Oh, I can't wait to dig into this. I'm looking. It's got that right. It's got that consistency that makes you want to sip it. Let's find out. Oh, This is delicious. I could down this in a moment. This is, oh, and that Pinot, oh, the wine comes through at the end, which is beautiful. You get a nice, so the top note you're getting right off the top, you actually, because I put so much mint on the top, a nice bouquet. When I went to sip, I actually smelt the mint, which then informed my taste and allowed me to taste the mint in the cocktail, even though there isn't any, because your nose connected to your mouth, baby. So I got a little bit of that mint taste in there, which was nice. Kind of opened up that kind of for me, and then that just kind of came through so beautifully. Sweet, but not overly sweet. I wouldn't call this an overly sweet cocktail, but if you're looking for something a little on the sweet side, this is definitely your go-to. It's, I would say, close to balanced. It's got a nice little bit of strong and a berry note from the wine. I'm really enjoying this. What do you think, Mark?
Very, very nice. Can you see?
Mm-hmm. I see that you got a couple dollars to spend. You got a strawberry on there.
Yep.
No, I'm glad that you're enjoying it. I think, especially if you've, look, I'm never going to say, hey, your kids would enjoy this, because obviously we don't give alcohol to kids. But I will say that every time I go back for Thanksgiving now, having done isolated for so long, which is now, you know, we're getting closer to year every day. My nieces want to mix things with me. It looks fun. And you can very easily substitute some of things out, like grape juice instead of wine. And you can get very, very similar tastes to this, at least that kids would enjoy, and that you could kind of have a drink with them in that way. Because I know Thanksgiving's got a lot of children around, a lot of families around. So I'm always trying to look on the outside looking in of how can I make this cocktail more family friendly. One of them is just removing the alcohol, but that's no fun for you. So, you know, I gotta work around, okay? I gotta get some grape juice in there. But folks, that is our second cocktail of the night. We got about 15 to 20 minutes left here. So let's get that last cocktail in. And this, folks, is my ode to dessert. Let me tell you what's best about Thanksgiving. Forget the turkey, forget the family, forget the everything else. I'm telling you right now, it's about that last step. If the dessert is good, the rest of the night is good. So I kind of cracked my head around a couple of things, and this is my ode to dessert, at least where I grew up. There's a little bit of French influence here because I am from Montreal, Quebec originally, although I do live in Toronto. So we got a little bit of that Frenchness going. But let me go ahead and grab the last cocktail of the night. And you'll also notice that this cocktail has got a beautiful flavor palette in terms of what is going on. So I'm going to just pop it down there into the chat. Now, look, you're noticing probably off the top that, yep, our cognac is coming back. I'm not going to make you buy cognac and not make it work in a couple of cocktails, okay? This way you got a little bit of use out of that bottle. Even if you get something small, like a small Hennessy bottle, you can get a good bit of run out of it. This cocktail, folks, is known as the orange brulee cocktail. So think of a nice brulee style cocktail, or rather dessert, and what goes into it. There's a lot of things. It's got that creamy texture, that little bit of burnt top that's got that crunch. It's a nice sweet, yet kind of, it almost is a palate cleanser in a weird way. It really just kind of lets you kind of sit in it. And that was kind of my goal for this cocktail. I did draw influence from another similar cocktail created by Xavier Laguille in 2006 out of the Bar La Forêt in Paris, France. But we've made some adjustments here to kind of make it our own. But there it is down in the chat. We're using a little bit of nutty Amaretto. We've got some Grand Marnier. Now, if you don't got Grand Marnier on hand, you got another orange liqueur, like a triple sec, like a Cointreau, or even like a dry Curacao. Those will all work in a pinch. I enjoy Grand Marnier because it's got a little bit of brandy flavoring to it. When I say a little bit, I mean a lot of it. This is a brandy-based liqueur, so it has that nice orange hue to it, which in an orange brulee, I would kind of want. So that's why I chose the Grand Marnier here. But for this cocktail, I would choose something with a stem. Now, I have my Nick and Nora glass, but I think I'm going to change my mind here, and I'm going to get something with a bit more of a wide berth mouth here. So I'm switching it out for my coupe glass. This is my my favorite find of the summer. This was $1 at a yard sale, and it's got that crystal ting to it. So $1 for a crystal glass. I'm always gonna. I was like, thanks, ladies. Have a great garage sale. And I just cuddled over. It was a great time. Rosie really proud that day. I'm going to be using a coupe style glass. I will, of course, be chilling down my glassware. There is no muddling in this cocktail, but you want to make sure that you got a nice cold cocktail glass. So I'm going to go ahead and just fill that with some ice, leave it off to the side. And let's grab our last cocktail shaker of the night. I've got a couple, but if you only have one, I hope you rinsed it out. And let's grab this last cocktail of the evening. Go ahead and fill that cocktail shaker up with some ice. We've got just enough time here to really knock this one out of the park. I'm gonna go ahead and use my last two spears, pop that in the sink, and let's get this one going. I'm excited for this. When you see it, I think you'll understand the aesthetic we're going for here, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. So go ahead and start yourself off with your Amaretto. If you don't know what Amaretto is, I'm gonna show it up right here. This is probably the most recognizable bottle, Di Serono. It's an Italian almond liqueur. Yes, and Mark's got probably the other one, which is probably one of the more recognizables. But yeah, no, if you haven't had this in your life and you're getting it for this cocktail, give yourself a little taste of it first, just so you understand the flavor profile. Let me tell you. Tastes like almonds. No, it's a wonderfully sweet liqueur. It's got a nice almondy nuttiness to it. And honestly, this on the rocks, I will have any night of the week. So I'm going to go ahead and start this one off with 1.5 ounces of our Amaretto. So this is an Amaretto forward or nutty. I just poured some on my table, so I'm just going to give myself a little extra. It's going to be a wonderfully nutty, kind of desserty style cocktail, of course, is what we're looking for. I'm just going to clean this up a little bit because, I like me a nice clean table. Alrighty, next up is our orange in the cocktail. Our orange spirit, I've chosen Grand Marnier. Like I said, if you don't got that Grand Marnier, don't worry too hard about it. It's not the end of the world. But we are going to be doing an equal share of 1.5 ounces of that orange liqueur. So if you've noticed already, I'm hitting you hard here with a strong finisher cocktail. Most cocktails in the US and Canada are sold at 2.5 to 3 ounces normally, usually closer to 2, because when you ask for a double, you're not going to get 4 ounces. You'll most likely get somewhere between 3.5, depending on the establishment, your liquor laws in your country or province or state. So I'm just saying right now, this one's going to be a hard hitting cocktail to finish you off for the night. All right, so we've got our Amaretto, we've got our Grand Marnier. Let's move back over to our cognac. We're going to be doing 3/4 of an ounce here, folks. 3/4 of an ounce, which is a good amount of cognac. It's really going to help lighten the load here, I think, and really kind of help solidify what we want to do here. And folks, now you could shake this. Technically you shouldn't shake this. I'm going to say right now, you should not shake this because all we have in the tin is alcohol. If you think of old school cocktails like your Negroni, your old fashions, these things are stirred because we don't want to bruise the alcohol during shaking. But because we're going to be adding other things to this, I don't care about bruising the alcohol. I actually don't mind diluting it down slightly with a shake. So I will shake this, but some may prefer to stir this. But I will say that I am a big fan here of the shake. So I am going to shake this one off and just get a nice bit of dilution here. All righty. But a lot of people will say, hey, don't stir that long or don't shake that long. I don't want you to dilute my cocktail, water it down. Let me tell you, folks, one of the biggest components of cocktails is water, is watering down. Before cocktails were made way back in the 1800s, we didn't have fridges back then. We didn't have ice. They used water to kind of lengthen these tastes and allow you to taste all of them individually, and it's not a sock to the face with alcohol. If you ever have a drink and it's like, wow, that alcohol just like punched me in the mouth and it hurt, it's because there was no water involved, or at least not enough. So that's kind of my policy when it comes to cocktails. And I'm going to go ahead and just strain this out right into my empty. This cocktail will be served straight up into my cocktail glass. And I'm actually going to do that one more time because too much ice got away from me. So I'm actually going to pour that back in and get a different strainer, something with a little firmer of a wiring. So I get a nice smooth pour. I don't want too much, but we do need to leave a little bit of room on top because we are going to be floating some ingredients here. Because this is a dessert cocktail, of course, already, you could kind of serve this like this and you're gonna be like, oh, wow, that's a strong orange cocktail. But how do we make it dessert? Well, we're gonna add a little bit of cream to our creme brulee style cocktail. All right, so I've got myself some heavy cream or whipping cream. It's about 25, 35%. 35% I think is what you should be getting. And I'm going to pour into my jigger about half an ounce. Now, depending on the size of your glass, you may need a little more or a little less, depending on how wide your mouth of your glass is. Because the idea is we're going to cover the surface with a float of that cream. And how do you do that? Well, you're going to want to grab your trusty bar spoon or really any spoon, and we're going to use the back end of the spoon. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put that stem of my spoon on, I'm going to rest it on the rim, and I'm going to take my whipping cream, and I'm going to, as slowly as I can, pour it over the back of my spoon. When I mean slow, I mean I can get drops of this. And the idea here is that as I bring this across slowly, so will the cream. And we're just gonna let that sit up top. Now I probably need another, just a touch more, just so I can cover the top here, probably just a little bit more. Just so I can get a nice covering of the top of this. And I will try and show this to you. This is where Rosie would come in with her camera skills. And I am going to pour that right over the top. And I'll see if I can get that a little closer. Can I tilt? What if I put it down here? I think you might be able to see it. Yeah, you can see it come down.
Yeah.
You can see the layer is up here and our drink is up. So
Great.
that's a good start. How do we take it even further? How do we get this dessert? Well, that's where you get some chocolate. You get some semi-sweet, some baker's chocolate, which I think I happened to grab before the start of class. And you're also going to want to grab a small grater, some kind of like cheese grater. I'm just going to go ahead and break off a nice chunk. Grab a little grater. And all I'm going to do here is just grate a little bit of chocolate shavings on the top, which is really going to take this cocktail to the next level. Oh, there we go. I made a bit of a mess, but it's chocolate. It's all good. All right. It's okay. Semi-sweet. It's not the bitter stuff. And folks, there you have it. This is going to kick your butt, I hope anyway. This is your orange brulee cocktail. Oh, Mark looks great.
Mark did a nice job. How's it taste? Looks great.
To take a picture first.
Oh, you should, because it's gorgeous. Oh, that orange flavor just comes in, but then the nuts, that almond really just comes from underneath. That cream is almost like it's doing something nice to my palate. It's giving me a nice kind of rounded flavor. Nothing punchy about it. It's strong. You can definitely taste the alcohol in it, but it's not hitting you like a sting. Like when you have a shot of tequila and you're like, oh God, get it away from me. Another. Mark, what do you think?
I think I could have this every night for dessert.
Wow.
Good.
That's awesome.
I got a trip to the liquor store planned in my near future.
Perfect.
We plan on joining us every so often, Shannon. It's going to be a regular thing. Trust me, they're going to get to know you.
Good.
But folks, give yourselves a round of applause. Get 3 cocktails in an hour. Just let me touch base really quickly on what we did do for this Thanksgiving coming in the U.S. We've got our dessert cocktail, which I'm talking about first, orange brulee cocktail. Then we moved over to a little bit of that wine, maybe a little leftover wine, maybe you're off with it, the red sauce or velvet Revolver cocktail. And then we started our night over with the devil's share, the antithesis of the cognac vanilla angel's share. But folks, thanks so much for sticking around, having a great night. I had a lot of fun. Rosie's going to be very jealous when she watches this back over on the YouTube. Hi, Rosie. But have a great rest of your evening. I hope you have a fantastic Thanksgiving. say thank you so much to Single Life Today and Singles Travel for having isolation cocktails over the last year. It's been to get to know not only their community, but kind of meld you folks into our own community with the cocktail. And I hope that it's something that continues. And even if it doesn't, we've had such a blast. And we know that at some point we will have drinks in person. And that's going to be a mess. And I can't wait.
I'm right there with you, Matt. Thank you so
All
much, Matt.
Thank
Isolation
you.
Cocktails. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you next month. I don't know what date yet, but we'll see you in December.
All right.
Definitely some Christmas flavors coming your way.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like
Right.
it.
Fantastic.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye. Bye,
Goodbye,
Matt.
Matt.